This is the voice of freedom. We are not one voice. We are many. We are your voice. But we can only be effective if you use your voice. Your voice. This is the voice of freedom. We will not hide from the truth. We will ask the hard questions until we are sure we have the truth. Welcome to the voice of freedom, where your voice will never be silenced.
Well, good evening, folks, and welcome to the show. Tonight, we are coming live from the Terminus Hotel in Shepparton. Good evening, Shepparton. Thank you for having us. No cameras tonight, folks, just the laptop show, but rest assured we've got 100-odd people gathered inside and a few gathered outside the door. Can you hear us outside okay, folks? All good? All right, don't need to turn it up any louder. That works out well. Thank you very much to everybody in Shepparton who's invited us here today, particularly for Francis and her husband Eric, who were instrumental in getting the show put together. I'd like to thank them very much for getting me here. We had a marvellous time with them a couple of weeks ago with Darren Bergwerf down in Frankston, and they looked after us magnificently while we were in Melbourne as well. So can I just get a round of applause for Eric and Francis, please? For all the work, and for Greg and Brooke for giving the venue over to us tonight. How was your meals, folks? Did you have a feed? Yeah, pretty flash sort of a meal. I saw a very decent steak inhaled by Mr. Bergwerf earlier, and well, I was a bit envious, I've got to admit, but anyway, I'm not going to fade away. My burger was just as nice. So if you are looking for a good feed in Shepparton, folks, the Terminus Hotel, lovely, very nice indeed. So what's happening in the world? It is today, of all days, November the 8th, and we've talked about that for months, haven't we? Well, it's not November the 8th in America yet, so not a great deal has happened. There have been a few noises coming out of 45's camp about what's going on in the election. There's been a few noises coming out of Joe Biden's camp about what's going on with the midterm elections as well. And in fact, the latest news that I've heard from them is they believe that the Republicans are going to steal the midterm elections, and that will be the narrative that you will see played out in the media. Still got to get to it yet, but the school of thought currently is that there will be an election and that there is, in all likelihood, going to be a free and relatively fair election. 14 states have military cyber teams monitoring both their online and mail-in voting systems. 14 cyber teams in 14 different states looking for any discrepancies that might be happening. Now, you might remember that in 2020, they did find a number of question marks over things. We've since found out that they've been looking at elections now for possibly as many as 10 years. And that means that they have a great deal of evidence about what is going on and how it has been going on. So the school of thought currently resides that there will be a resounding red wave in the midterm elections. It will be a genuine red wave, not rigged, not cheated in any way. The Democrats, of course, are going to scream that it has been rigged, and because they have the power, so to speak, at the moment to try and block that, then it is within Biden's power, if you like, to ignore the election completely. Now, if that were to happen, if he declared that he didn't believe the result because the Republicans had somehow rigged it and refuses to accept the result, then essentially he's doing everything that Trump did, but he has the backing of the current Congress for it, at least until January, when the new Congress would be sworn in. So it does look a little messy. I don't think the rest of the world wants to wait until January for all this madness to end. So Donald Trump has come out with another date, the 14th of November, he says. He's going to have a big announcement for us on the 14th of November. So we get to wait another 6 days, apparently, and before we can figure out what's going on in the world. So I really don't know, folks, how that's going to play out. I'm really at the end of my tether, as I'm sure all of you are. We've heard enough about all this. We believe there are enough waked people in the world to make a change. And some of these large red pills need to be dropped into society so that those who are not yet awake or who are a little bit awake can be brought up to speed relatively quickly. They might be kicking and screaming as we bring them up to speed. We have to remember that we were kicking and screaming as we were bringing ourselves up to speed. We were shaking our heads and disbelieving the stuff that we were seeing. It was only after researching ourselves and digging deeper ourselves that we found out that what we were being shown was true. We have to remember that those people have done none of that research, absolutely none of it. They are deeply, deeply, deeply brainwashed. And when these red pills start coming, there will be cognitive dissonance displays from people unlike anything we've ever seen before. And some of that will relate to suicide, some of that will relate to murder, some of that will relate to great violence, physical violence against people. We need to be the ones who try to temper that in these newly woken up folks. We had a fella at a show not all that long ago. He walked past and heard us talking, decided to stand up the back, and once we started telling a few little truths, he started yelling and carrying on. He was very angry, and he was very angry that everybody in the room wasn't very angry. So we had to explain to him that while it was the first time he'd been hearing about what we were talking about, and yes, he had every right to be angry, he shouldn't be angry at us because we've been talking about it and telling others about it for years and being laughed at, ridiculed, and abused. So that's the kind of thing we're going to face. People who all of a sudden wake up and think they've come to this great, epiphany by themselves, and we don't know anything about it yet. They're going to try and teach us. Okay, so we're going to have to let them try and teach us for a little bit. So let them have that sentence, and when they go, see, you can then say, oh yeah, but did you know about? And take them down another hole. That's essentially what we're going to have to do. So good luck with that. We're all going to be having a lot of fun with that. I think that's one of the greatest roles that people in our position have in what is coming in the next, 3 months, 6 months, 12 months, 5 years, 10 years, 20 years. This is not going to be a fast fix. It is unfortunately going to be long and painful for many people. But for those of us in this room and those of us watching online who are more than awake, it's going to be very enjoyable. It's going to be wonderful to watch. Can I get a bit of an idea of hands? Is anybody anxious about what's happening at the moment? Is anybody anxious at all? Not one person. Oh, one person's a bit anxious. Okay. 2 maybe. 3. Well, there's one there, one there, one there. So let's go with 3. Okay, 3 people in 100 plus people are a little bit anxious about what is coming. The rest of us are what?
Bring it on.
We're all ready. Absolutely, we're ready for it. Bring it on. And if it is a fight they want, are they going to get a fight? Oh, shit, yeah is the resounding answer to that. So we have to be gentle. We have to be community driven. We have to be loving. We have to be understanding. And we have to be tolerant. We have to remember that these people haven't been down the holes, not as long as us. They've just never been down the holes. In fact, you tell them it's a rabbit hole, they'll tell you it's not. So we have to be tolerant. There's no point in getting angry. There is a point where you give up and just say, oh, look, you figure it out for yourself, because you cannot waste time on people who will not be convinced. They're the ones who are going to go through the rest of this life believing that they were right. And unfortunately, it won't be until they die and they figure out what that jab has done to their soul that the truth will really come to them, which is a tad unfortunate. Speaking about the truth, has anybody been following the Aussie Cossack today? No? God, love the Aussie Cossack, marvellous human being. He was at Burwood Parole Building today, where he's got to report for his parole, I guess, once a week. And he was informed at that parole hearing today that the Australian Federal Police have applied to have his parole revoked and have him sent back to jail. Now, the only way they can really do that is if he leaves the state. He's not allowed to go out of New South Wales. So upon inquiry, the Aussie Cossack found out that the Australian Federal Police had issued a brief that said he was apparently having a meeting at the Aboriginal Tent Embassy in Canberra with people. Fortunately for the Cossack, the parolee or the parole board sent back a note that said, well, please supply some proof and evidence of this, will you, if you want us to breach him. They replied that they didn't have any evidence that they could supply. They just know that he was there. Of course, the Aussie Cossack is eminently traceable. Practically every minute of the day you can find him on YouTube, or in between the gaps where he's not on YouTube, you can figure out he hasn't had time to drive from Sydney to Canberra. So it's not a difficult thing to prove that he was nowhere near Canberra at the time. But later this afternoon, he posted up that he may have figured out how this confusion happened. He is currently applying for a visa to go back to Russia for a funeral of one of his comrades who was killed by a missile attack. Now, he is also attached to the family in other ways. He's the godfather to one of the children in the family. And this is a special cultural event, obviously, the burial of his comrade, his friend. And because he's been put in a position of some influence over the child, he feels that he should be there. So he has been applying for visas to go back to the USSR, or sorry, I beg your pardon, back to Russia, and attend the funeral and the family of his deceased mate. Now, to do that, he was going to go and get a letter or a visa or an application or a good word from the Russian ambassador, because we all know that the Cossack has done a lot for Australian-Russian relations in recent times. Now, not unusual if you had that ability to reach to an ambassador to get a letter of support, maybe, that you would do such a thing. However, he didn't have to go to Canberra to get that. He didn't have to have a meeting, although he would have liked to have had a meeting, I'm sure, with the ambassador. But he thinks that the police may have been bugging his phones and heard a few bits about plans to come to Canberra, maybe meet the Russian ambassador, and have decided to draw a story from that. So I think the Australian Federal Police may have some questions to answer about how they are putting in briefs of, well, non-evidence about parolees apparently being out of the state they were paroled in. It raises some very interesting questions, and I'm sure the Aussie Cossack will be following those questions very deeply in the next few days. I'll look forward to seeing how that works out. And what sort of a quandary do the Australian government face? Do they look away from his parole and give him the visa so that he can get on a plane and fly back to Russia, out of Australia and out of their hair? Or do they not give him a visa and leave him walking around Sydney with his mobile phone and a very bad attitude? It's a marvellous position he's put them in, isn't it? So kudos to the Aussie Cossack. Well done, brother. And I hope you get what you're looking for. I really do. I think it's important that for all cultural reasons, he gets to meet with the family and to play the role that he needs to play. He's also doing a great deal for our movement. And although I sometimes get a little confused that he's not maybe quite aware that there are two Americas. There's the one that's fighting in the Ukraine, and then there's the one that's pulled up in Sydney and flying around our skies, and having many troops floating around in Darwin and other cities around the country. In fact, I'm led to believe that quite possibly areas in and around the Greater Goulburn Valley may have been visited recently by large numbers of police and military, and taking folks away. So there is a lot going on, an awful lot going on. We want to make everything a little bit easier on people. And we believe the best way to do that is through the community that you live in. You need to start a grassroots organisation that looks after each other. And we can tell from the amount of people that turn up to these shows that there are a lot of people who care about everybody else in the community. You folks are not here for yourselves. You folks are here maybe to get a little intel, maybe find out something that hopefully is a bit of positive news over the next few days, weeks or months. And I hope I can give you a little bit of that. But I have no deep intel access. Certainly General Flynn doesn't call me. And I believe, he doesn't call too many people on any regular basis. The biggest issue that we have with communications to the White Hats is that none of us have secure communications to the White Hats. And why would they tell us what they're doing? I mean, they leave that to people to try and interpret what they're doing. If you followed the Q movement at all, you would understand that it started with gamers trying to attract people who are used to solving problems. That's what the Q movement was initially all about, trying to get problem solvers into the game. And they were very, very successful at it. A number of you are probably deeply into that. Many others might be into gematria, which is another piece to the puzzle. It's a piece to the puzzle I can't work because my eyes turn into poker machine reels every time I look at large amounts of numbers. But gematria is real. There is a lot of truth in it. And, well, everybody has an opinion. You are welcome to yours. But I've seen far too much come out in other people's numbers to believe that there is nothing to it. Do I know how they do it, what it's about? No, I don't. Would I trust my life to it? No, I wouldn't. But then again, I wouldn't trust my life to Ricardo Bosey telling me that the day is going to be beautiful tomorrow and the war is over. I just don't trust people like that. And I don't think you do either. That's why we've avoided the jab. That's why we've avoided at all costs anything to do with the jab, and we will fight to stay away from the jab. That's why we do it, because we are independent thinkers and we are doers for the most part in our community. And right now, I'd like to introduce you to one of the biggest doers in any community I've ever come across. He has come up with a concept called My Place. He started it in his warehouse factory facility in the CBD of Frankston, and since then it has grown enormously. So can I get you, ladies and gentlemen, to put your hands together and please welcome Darren Bergwerf, independent member, independent for Frankston in the current election campaign, trying out for that. And Darren, there you go. You sit yourself in there. We're going to be rubbing shoulders again. Just don't touch me like you did last time.
No worries.
I'll give you a
Not under the table anyway.
No touching under the table. So, folks, Darren Bergwerf is the man who is, was until recently known as the People's Mayor of Frankston. But now we have a new title.
Yeah, I've been demoted. I'm now a Burgess, which is the correct terminology for a People's Council until such time as we get 100 ratepayers as members of the Frankston People's Council. So a demotion short term, I think we've got about 61 signed up ratepayers, so it won't be long before I get retitled back to mayor, hopefully.
Very good. So let's talk a little bit about My Place and how you started it in Frankston. What was your motivation for it?
Motivation was purely and simply discrimination against us as people that saw the bullshit and didn't want to get a vaccination, and we weren't allowed to go out and be part of society unless we had a certificate to say so. So back in October, I decided to open up the doors. This was after a day at the union office and a day on the Westgate, kind of protesting against our putrid building union that mandated for all our workers, and my two sons were part of that. That they couldn't have a job anymore unless they were vaccinated, which once again, discriminatory and, patient-doctor confidentiality laws getting broken left, right and centre when employers are asking to see a medical procedure, which is none of their business. So that's my main motivation, and that's what started. It was rebellious. It was during the lockdowns, and we're a little bit underground. We had police circling the first few nights we had. 3 weeks in, we had 300 plus people came through the building, and it was BYO, your own food, drinks. I didn't have any facilities apart from a bit, and it's kind of grown from then into something quite special.
Well, it has. You've grown into market days with people coming from, hours and hours away. One lady I met there at the Frankston show came from Camperdown, which is about 4.5 hours drive away. Don't know if she came across on the ferry or she did it the long way, but she came not just to buy her veggies, because she could have bought her veggies from anywhere. She came to be part of the family, part of the group. And I guess what I've discovered, and not just Darren's My Place, but certainly spending the week with you a couple of weeks ago down there and having 3 or 4 shows there, really brought it home to me that people come to My Place because it's groups like this who are already reading the same book. We're all on different pages of it, but here you're amongst friends. You can say something here and none of us is going to say, oh, that's bloody ridiculous. right? None of us is going to say that's bloody ridiculous. And if somebody does say, oh, that's bloody ridiculous, tell them they haven't done enough reading yet, because that's essentially what it amounts to. We are, as I said before, we're all able to have our own opinions. Some of us are far deeper down rabbit holes than other people. That doesn't make us superior or better, but it does make us responsible for imparting the information. If we can help you skip a few pages in the book, as long as we're getting that information right, then groups like this and the groups that come to my place are where we share that. And then we build from that because we have a community feeling. And Darren, I've seen that in evidence at your place. The community comes together at every level to help, from the folks who don't need a home to the folks who need a place to live. The folks who have got plenty to eat to the folks who have got very little to eat. And this has all grown organically, for the want of a better term, under your stewardship, under your leadership. And now it has spread to how many venues around the country?
I'm not too sure at the moment. We've just had my place Whittlesea, my place Benalla, my place Bendigo, and my place Shepparton coming soon, I believe. My place Pakenham, and my place Oakley just started up in the last week. So we're close to 20, I believe. There's some also in South Australia, New South Wales and Queensland.
Yep, I've already been approached from both the Gold Coast and Sunshine Coast. They're very keen to get my places started there. And I know that there are people in Rockhampton, in Mackay, Townsville and Cairns who also want to get this happening. And folks coming back to Queensland, so get a hold of Cherie at vofhq.com and tell us when you'd like us to come north and talk to you, because we're happy to do that. Might even put Darren on a plane and fly him up. You'll see him because he never wears anything but the fluoro. And we'll help set it up. We'll help promote it. We will help people learn about this great initiative and join it. For people here, I mean, I know we've spoken briefly tonight to people who are keen to get one started here in Shepparton. How hard is it? How much work have you got to put in? How much does it cost? You know, what are the determining factors in getting a My Place started?
Okay, it's not really hard at all. And I think not the last show, but the show we did 3 weeks ago in South Morang, we had a lady in the audience, Tina, who was part of My Place Frankston. She'd been travelling from Doncaster, which is probably about 30 minutes away, for a few months. And I mentioned it's just as simple as starting a My Place Shepparton Facebook page. Keep it private because we need to monitor what content gets put on there so we don't get shut down and banned, because we all know Facebook is fact-checked ridiculously. But it is also, and I've got a little problem with one of the Roeville ones at the moment, that they only have a Telegram page. And yes, I have a Telegram page in Frankston as well, and all the conspiracy and all the stuff that we all know about gets put on that page. The Facebook page is important because the Telegram really is only for people that are awake and part of the freedom movement. You do not have the other 50% of the population on Telegram. So if we want to be inclusive and bring in all aspects of our community and rejoin with our brothers and sisters that were led astray and fooled, we need to be on a platform that reaches everybody. And Facebook, as much as people hate it, and I'm not a big fan of it, but it is the best platform to reach the whole community. And part of us winning this war is to get everybody on the same page, and that includes the 50 or 40% of the people that are out there that have been misled. So it's a must that we get that Facebook page. It's just a matter of starting the group. Numbers like Tina's went from from zero 3 weeks ago to over 360 today.
Wow. So it's not hard to grow in a very short period of time. All you need is a venue and a willingness to do something for the community, to give yourselves a place to come, to congregate, to learn from each other, to help each other, and to come up with plans on how to help the community. That, of course, leads us to leaders. That, of course, leads us to doers in the group. Now, you've also been instrumental in starting the People's Council movement. Now, in Victoria, it's working very, very well in Frankston, obviously, and in a few other areas, they've started it up. Some people have tried to start the council before starting at My Place, which is commendable, but in practice, much more difficult to get a good result out of.
Yeah, 100%, because, I've spoken to 2 mayors or burgesses in the last week. that have started their People's Council, but they don't have the community behind them. They don't have the support network that I've got at Frankston. We had My Place running for probably 10 months before we started the People's Council. And when you work closely with a group of people, you kind of understand who have the required skill sets to be to set up a People's Council, who has the time, who has the knowledge, and doesn't have the ego, because it really is. I mean, everything we do down there is all voluntary work, and I'm putting in, I don't know, 70 plus hours a week. That's all I do is live and breathe doing what I'm doing tonight. Going Sunday night, I was over at Doncaster speaking at their very first meeting. They packed out the church that we had that meeting in, 127 people, and the vibe and the it was amazing. For the first meeting, I couldn't believe it, and the people that come along for the first time to be part of something like that had never experienced it, and it was really special.
I can tell you, folks, that having experienced 3 separate My Place events, the attitude of everybody that turns up, the whole vibe of the whole place is all about learning, is all about sharing, is all about caring, is all about giving, and trying to help each other through whatever it happens to be that's ailing us at the moment. I mean, I know plenty of you here are struggling with the loss of family, both physically and mentally, I suppose, those family members that shear us off because we've decided to go a different path, taken a different decision from them. And this is such an earth-shattering decision that you've taken that parts of your family feel that you're no longer part of the family. Well, I can tell you that in a My Place, you're going to find a whole new family. And that family loves you, respects you for the choices that you make, will not argue with you about the choices that you make. And if they do feel that some of those choices might be lacking certain information that could be salient to a good result, then you can get that information in places like My Place. Then you've got your doers who will help those folks who need the help. When it comes down to a People's Council, you need to start looking for the doers, like you. I mean, you've led right from the start. Nobody came looking for you. You started it, others have followed. But we've now discovered you predominantly, me, I've discovered a few who are just as motivated as you are to do in their communities what you're doing, not just for Frankston, but what's now turning into broader Melbourne. So I think a round of applause, ladies and gentlemen, for this bloke. He is a machine and is tireless in trying to make our lives better. And if you want him here for any reason, he's the kind of bloke like me, doesn't mind getting in the car and going for a drive, and we'll come up. I mean, how many times have you been to Shepparton in the last couple of months?
I've been here for many, many years.
Oh, okay, so first time. You've been all around the region though, haven't you? You've been Bendigo, up on the Murray there.
Not yet.
Oh no, you were flooded out from that trip.
Yeah. I was going to go to Chugga for a camping trip for my kids over the cup weekend, and we couldn't get up there, so we ended up going out to Stall and spend some time out in the wheat belt, which is looking pretty dodgy with their crops at the moment. They're all flooded and probably won't end up being any good.
Yep. Rust will be in through all of those. A lot of water lying in the bottom of the paddocks. And Daniel, who's here tonight from Echuca, can't see him down the back. Thanks, Daniel. Daniel's got a property out there. He's spent a great deal, nearly $100,000, getting stuff planted and ready for the season. Currently, his entire farm is 2 meters underwater. That's a loss of $300,000+. And so there's plenty of people with land still underwater. Why is it underwater? Why is there still snow on your mountains? Why are the lakes and the reservoirs still full? Why? Climate change. Somebody throw that man out.
Why were the dams left empty all winter?
Yeah.
All the duckweed and grow the grasses on the side.
All the questions that need to be asked. So you've got a government election coming up, folks. It's pretty clear that you're fairly unhappy with the current government. Do you feel that that's around the state? Is it not just here?
No one votes in a Labor member in country Victoria.
Yeah.
End of story.
So no one votes in a Labor member in country Victoria. End of story.
Well, it's not just Labor members, guys. I mean, we've got to look at this. And my big push at the moment is all about our constitution And the way out of this mess is reclaiming our constitution, reclaiming our sovereignty. So it doesn't matter whether it's Labor, Liberal, Greens, Nationals, or even the so-called Freedom Party. If you are a registered political party in this country, you are unconstitutional. So we have got to stop, if we want to leave the system, we've got to stop participating in the system. So if you don't have, and even though the elections are probably the same thing, but if you want to vote, if you have an independent, that's where your vote should be going. If you don't, all I'd be doing is putting no suitable candidate across the 7 boxes.
Yeah.
We vote for these. We have dodgy teal independents and dodgy orange independents.
Yeah.
Yes.
So that's
We do not vote for them.
Yep.
There's a gentleman here talking about the dodgy teal independents and green independents that are just parties of another name, essentially.
100% correct.
You've got to be careful about that.
You do, actually. You do still have to do research, which is not one of the strong points of the Australian people. Research, we're very, very lazy, very easily led astray and following false leaders and false prophets. And that's just the way it is, unfortunately. And we are here to inform them and educate them on the process of what we need to do if we want to get our country back. And it is purely not voting for any political candidate that is part of a registered party. And yes, there are certainly Labor and Teal candidates that fit that mould.
So you're very vocal about this. Have you ever stood as an independent?
No.
Why not?
But we have an independent who ran here who was right up with Daniel Andrews.
Right.
We have an independent in
So
Shepparton.
it sounds to me like you need an independent who's actually independent. Why aren't you standing? That's what we need, isn't it? That's why we're here. I can't stand for you. You can complain about your independence all you like. One of you has to stand up and be that independent that all you people here can vote for. Don't complain about the other independents. Get off your ass and stand up and do it. That's what has to happen. I don't want to hear about what other independents can do, and they've sided with Andrews and they've sided with the other numpty. Get off your ass and be the independent we need. We need them. You need to save us. We can't come into your towns and be voted for. One of you has to stand up. You stand up, I'll come into your town and support you. Darren will come into your town and support you. But don't start complaining to us about the quality of the independence you have if you're not prepared to stand up and be the quality independent of the pack. Is that a fair statement? Yeah? Well, a couple of muted claps. So, right, got one that'll stand up. Excellent. Missed it this time round. See you in 4 years.
It's a strong statement, but look, I've been of that mind for a little bit, and back in April, I believed with the climate and what we've been through over the last 2 years that maybe there potentially was this time a chance to get on the inside and actually do something significant. The federal election basically told me that is no hope, and the definition of insanity is to keep doing the same thing over and over again, expect a different result. It's not. I'm at the conclusion now that there is no political answer to this, and this will be my last election. So as far as stand as an independent, this will be my last one, because there are far more important things that we should be putting all of our finances and our time and our energy into. And it's not marching in the streets, it's not banging drums, it's not going to Canberra anymore, and it's not running and wasting resources in any election that's in this country until such time as we have a free democratic election process. So what we need to be doing is building community and bringing people together, and that's what my place is all about. And it's not, we have so many groups in this country, and we must have hundreds of different groups, and whether it be this church or this religion and that religion, stand in the park, know your rights, common law, and that's all they are. They believe that they have the only answer. They stay cocooned in their own little groups, and we get segregated and separated by that mentality. What my place is about is dropping all of that bullshit, dropping the buffs, dropping your beliefs when you walk through that door, and you come into a My Place community, and none of what you believe in beforehand is relevant. You are as equal as every other person in that room, and I don't care what age, sex, bloody religion, whatever you come from, we are all the same. And that is the only way that we're going to win this war. And the volunteers that we have down at Frankston is like a wartime scenario. where you've got people in factories making bullets, making guns, making clothes, putting food packs together, men off at war, fighting generally back in the day. And we are in exactly the same position. And most people in this country don't grasp the severity and exactly where this country's at. And until such time as they do, and they recognise that this country is in peril, and we're on the doorstep of communism, then maybe then they might actually start to recognise that they need to get off their arse and do something. And I don't believe anymore that it's being a political candidate. I believe it's getting into your local community and getting out there and harnessing and finding as many people as you can to come to venues like this, which I'm hoping will be a My Place venue very soon, and getting together and problem solving as a group and drop the egos. And we need strong leadership in every single one of these communities so it doesn't get taken over and taken in the wrong direction by somebody.
Can you imagine what it'd be like if Benalla, Shepparton and Bendigo and Echuca have all got My Places? Can you imagine the large group of people that you can affect in that area? From Bendigo to the river, from Benalla to the river, from Shepparton to the river, and probably south down to the Union. You have the ability to make great, effective change. All you're lacking is a My Place to sit, gather, discuss that change, formulate that change, and then action that change. So hopefully there's some of you here tonight that would be keen to set something like this up in your area. Obviously, we're talking about Shepparton already. Echuca is a venue that I know Darren would love to add to the My Place Australia list. And last week in Tasmania, when I was down there, Launceston, Hobart, North Moreton basically already have their own, or Northwest Tasmania basically already have their own My Place, but there are a bunch of preppers who really know their stuff. And their knowledge is going to become part of the knowledge base of My Place. Now, it won't matter what My Place you're part of, you will have access to that knowledge base. And Darren, we were talking during the week about how I've been approached by people saying, oh, well, will I have reciprocal rights at My Places around the country? And it's something that, you know, we'd love to see happen. You know, if you're going on a road trip with your caravan and you want to meet familiar faces or you want to meet new faces, but know that you're going into the same kind of family, then My Places will be opened up for that eventually. People will be able to visit.
100%. Everyone's welcome at My Place. Everyone. And that's people that are leaving RDA, people that are leaving common law groups because they're going nowhere. There are so many groups out there and they're just not getting the growth because they are one-dimensional and they pigeonhole themselves. We've got to cover all aspects of community and be so inclusive that it doesn't matter where you come from, what group you're in, you're welcome. And we're blending people's perceptions and beliefs like never before. It's something really special taking place at the moment.
Yeah, and you can be part of it, folks. It's just a matter of starting a group yourself. Like I say, Darren is able to give you encouragement, direction. In fact, I don't know if the list has been put together yet, but there will be a list of steps to follow that is basically from 1 to 2 to 3 to 4. Follow that, you will have yourself a very successful little group, which might then lead to a people's council. Now, I've been approached, I don't know if you have tonight, I've been approached by a lot of people who want to know Spiro and get a hold of Spiros and find out, well, all sorts of different things. I guess there's a few people who've got legal issues themselves. They're looking for his advice. I'll tell you now, folks, there is only one cause that Spiros is working for at the moment, and that's for the people. He's not working for individual people as such. He is working for all of us, and he is far too busy doing that to be able to help with other things. Is that a fair statement?
That's a very fair statement. He's flat out.
So please, for those folks who are emailing and wanting Spiros contact details, we don't hand them on. Won't even acknowledge your email at this point in time because Spiros is too busy to deal with it. And I've got to admit, your email is probably one of 1,000 in my inbox at the moment. So I'll go to the ones that I can help with first. So folks, have you got any questions? Is there anything that you might like to learn either from myself or from Darren, because he's the man about My Place, and People's Council? Got one down the back there. If you might, I don't know, Darren, whether or not you're up to talk about it. It's more Spiros, baby, but the People's Trust of Victoria is also another thing. I've had some folks talking to me earlier about. There might be some more information we can impart on that. Madam, your question?
Hi, I just wanted to ask any of the My Place venues, council-owned
Are any of the My Place venues council owned? At this stage, I don't think that is the case. Council owned venues?
Yes, there are some people holding weekly meetings in council owned venues, yes. Because at the end of the day, My Place is all about community building. And if they start to try and shut us down for that, they're going to get a kickback like they've never seen.
Yep, pretty fair question. Anybody else got a question? Have you heard about the People's Trust? If you've been fined and you don't necessarily particularly believe the fine is warranted, then you can go through the Victorian People's Trust and essentially ask the government to prove they have the jurisdiction to not only give you the fine, but to accept the payment for it. This is putting a big brake on government money. Sir?
Question. We've got a group of unfortunate individuals in Echuca who were put on the wrong side of a levy. And we're looking at ways we can assist them so they never ever have to pay their council rates again. What can be done?
Well, there's a few things depending on which way you want to play it. We'll go with Darren's first.
All right. So as far as rates and fines and land tax go in this state, we're offering a platform where you can challenge all of those things. And it doesn't matter whether you're on the wrong side of a train track or the wrong side of a levy bank, or you're just in Main Street Toorak. We believe that all of these so-called invoices are unlawful under our constitution. None of it has royal assent. None of it's been recognised, and the Local Government Act that all these councils come back out all the time with, once again, we don't believe is true and correct, and we don't believe it has any basis in law. So we are helping people challenge all of these things. It doesn't matter where you live. And as far as what's going on with the Goulburn Valley and all the way down the Murray River at the moment, as you that are living this nightmare know, there have been decisions made, and I'm not going to elaborate too much, but I believe that, in my opinion, that they have been deliberate, that they've left these dams full over winter, and they're normally lowered to a certain level by the start of spring to allow for the snow melt and the spring rains to top them back up without flooding the valleys. So we've seen this happen around the country. We've seen it happen overseas. There is attack on humanity at the moment like has never been seen before, and it's not like any other war that we've ever fought. And people are starting to wake up to it, and this is part of it. There are food crops that are being ruined. There are food processing plants that are being destroyed. There are going to be food shortages, and we don't know the extent of that at the moment, but it could be catastrophic. So,
well, there'll be a few people here, I'm sure, who can give us a bit of an idea about the floods that recently affected this area. A lot of fruit growing in this area, obviously. How are the citrus crops looking? How are the other crops looking? Heaps of damage. Are your paddocks still sodden? Can you get tractors into them? Could you harvest if you had to? I think, a lot of people in this area are struggling with those sorts of things, and there is more wet weather coming. We were only talking outside before to a few people commenting on how much snow fell on the Victorian Alps over the Melbourne Cup weekend, how cold it has been. Sure, there's been a couple of sunny days recently. That'll help the melt a little bit, but rest assured, they'll bring on another few days of rain. That'll harden that up again. They're going to keep this flood and this flood level going for as long as they can.
So is it white hats or black hats doing it?
Well, I wouldn't say it's white hats doing it. No. White hats generally, you find, do not go around destroying people's livelihoods or businesses. They don't go around unemploying people, and they don't go around enforcing things that are unlawful on you. So, I wouldn't be too worried about the white hats from that aspect. There is a great argument about white and black hats doing different spraying methods in our skies, and I think there's a fairly strong argument for both of that at the moment, including if you take a drive, as I've managed to do 2 times recently between Melbourne and Sydney. I've never seen the ground look so green. I have never seen sheep standing head high in grass-filled lands, not in Victoria, not in years. But that's what there is between here and Canberra and here in Sydney. It is, and the Botanical Gardens, yeah. So all of this engineering of a drought that we were going to have doesn't seem to have happened, does it? Because the grass, we've had too much rain and the grass is growing at a phenomenal rate. So could there be fertiliser being sprayed to try and counteract anything that had been sprayed before it? I don't know. It does make a reasonable argument when you go and have a look at the level of feed that is in the paddocks. Now, if they're going to keep Victoria wet for now and the next few months or weeks at least, when's the bushfires going to happen? I would say March. That would be the aim. It'll be dried out enough by March, won't it? Be tinder dry by then and be very long. So, you know, the argument there is, well, if they're spreading fertiliser, why are they going to set it on fire in March? So yes, white, black hat, who knows? At the end of the day, all will become clear, we hope, in the very near future. And in the next, 24 hours, we'll get some indication of what's going on in the world. And then 6 days later, Donald Trump's going to tell us something. Woohoo. Who's got a question?
Yeah, I've got a question. I've got an issue that it's about fine that I received.
Yep.
And I received a fine because I donated 2 bags of clothes to St Vincent's de Paul, and I put them in the doorway of the shop. Someone must have been spying on me because I received a $330 fine to donate some clothes to the charity from the Shep Council. So what I did, I went down to the Shep Council, I got a review form, and I said, under constitutional and common law, I have not committed a crime, and if you wish to take this further, I will see you in court. And I received a letter back about 2 weeks later, and it said that we have no evidence against you, we've decided to drop the fine.
Well done.
And I just put another one in because I dropped my daughter off at school and it was raining, so I was just on the edge of a bus zone. So I parked there, dropped her off in the rain, and there was a council person behind me taking a photo of the back of my car. So I just put it in about 3 days ago, and I said that this fine is not me, and it does not belong to me. And I said that I'm a living soul, and I'm not who you think I am, and that you are a corporation, and if you go to court, you'll have to prove that you are not a corporation, which I know you are. And I said, if you wish to take it further to court, I will see you there, and I'll have other people to back me up. So I'm just waiting on that one. So
Good luck with that. I think it'll go pretty well.
And that's fantastic, and that's exactly what we all need to be doing. That's why we've been going to our local council meeting for the last 5 months, long before I started the Frankston People's Council, and that's to be a set of eyes on everything they do, and to let them know that we're watching, and that every contract they let, we are going to scrutinise who gets the contract, who the directors are of the company that gets that contract, and see if we can't trace that back to anybody or relative that is on the council committee. So all of these things, these are all platforms that we've established under My Place Community, and we've got about 12, and a council action group is one of them. Lilydale, My Place Yarra Valley is about to start doing that in the Yarra Rangers Council as well. And we're going to have people come from Knox and all around to make sure that those council chambers are filled every single time they have a meeting. And we need to do this en masse. We need to put the acid on them. They're starting to argue amongst themselves now in the council because we're pushing back. We've had 3 decisions overturned and reversed that the council had made because of public opinion. And it just goes to show when you stand up to the bully and you give them a blood nose and they stop harassing you. And hats off to you, my friend. And that we all need to start doing that and showing some courage and standing up, because they don't have a leg to stand on when you challenge them. So well done.
How many people here have ever been to a council meeting? A few. So part of the beautiful thing about going to a council meeting is that you do exactly what Darren has said. You're keeping them accountable. They can see that the people are turning up and watching the decisions and how they make them. I would encourage you to turn up to council meetings at every opportunity. And once you've got a My Place and you can form a committee like Darren has suggested, a council action committee, then every council meeting, you're going to have a group of people who turn up and are taking notes, and we'll make these people accountable. And you watch them smarten up, because your people's council will always come back to report to the people about what the corporate council is doing. And what do you think's going to happen the next time the corporate council has an election? Going to have all your people's councillors turning up and saying, why don't you give us a go? And because they've been working for you, telling you, keeping the bastards honest for you, I would think you would be more inclined to vote for them than one of the incumbents, wouldn't you? So this is a great way of bringing those doers up a level to help us at a council level. Now, whether that's a corporate council or something that's set up more in line with what Darren is feeling, then and that's the way I'd be hoping for it. We will wait and see. That's going to take a few more other big decisions in the world before we can figure that out. Anybody else? Yep, down the front.
Carl, Des, we've got someone who'll stand up, we've got a speaker. I'll be a doer. I'll drive around, do whatever needs doing. What we need is a shed. Does anyone, somewhere we can hang out?
I think there is some discussions going on in the background about that.
There is?
So I think, yeah, I think
Good to me.
a lot of it might be just starting in this room and growing from there. But what we do need is somebody to take control of it here.
Well, this is what I'm
Someone to stand up, someone to be a Darren in Shepparton.
We've got Peter that can do that.
All right, well,
I'll put my hand up for driving whatever we have to around.
beautiful.
So, yeah, we just need somewhere to kick off with.
And in Echuca, somewhere the same. Now, you were talking about the levy there before, sir. For those people who aren't aware, Echuca has been split in half by a levy that was going to stop everybody getting flooded on one side of the levy. On the other side of the levy, they've got water up to their roofline in places. So who was responsible for that? Who made such a bad decision? Who didn't look at the modelling? Council and SES, right?
But only the ones that were triple shadowed.
Yes.
We told them to piss off, and the locals took over everything. SES ran nothing.
So you still wound up with a levy though, built by a company, paid by the government, and it's flooding people's houses that never flooded before. Sounds a bit like parts around Lismore and in the Northern Rivers after they built the new freeway that stretches through the Northern Rivers and down to Grafton. That has caused pretty much a levy, and it has flooded more properties than ever before. So there's a lot of questions that have to be answered. A lot of questions that still have to be asked of those people who make those decisions. So if you can form a place like my place, and from that get a council action group, you've got a group that can start asking serious questions and demanding the answers, because the people demand it. They demand the truth. And so I can see there's a lot of folks in here tonight who are motivated to find that truth, just like Darren Bergwerf is motivated. He's motivated to find the truth, but he's also motivated to do everything he can for all of us. And I can see that there's a lot of faces in here who feel exactly the same way. There is no reason that after tonight we can't have a My Place Shepparton, a My Place Echuca. I think you said there's already one in Benalla, but I know there's some folks here from Benalla who may not be aware of that yet. They can go and join up. There might be folks from other areas here, Numurkah, Ngambie, anywhere like that. Stanhope, by all means. We want a My Place in every town. If we can get one in every town, then everyone will feel included, everyone's voice will be heard, and with a bit of luck, with everyone's voices, we'll be able to make some very, very significant changes to the betterment of all of us going forward. And I think, that's my goal, to try and be a part of something that's better for everybody. And I hope that you feel the same way, because together, I reckon we're unstoppable, don't you? Yeah. So we've got to get out and fight. Has anybody else got any other questions before we start wrapping it up? Nobody else? Oh yeah, down the back there, sir.
I just wondered whether Darren would run through the People's Council. I guess the key points of, what that's entailing. Is that just having a voice at council, or is there a few aspects of that?
Yep, sure. So
All right, so the People's Council at the moment, we've just set that up as a parallel council under our constitution. So our council's the constitutionally correct council, and at the moment,
Hang on, you take my mic.
At the moment, it's just a group of people, and what we're planning to do, we won't be collecting rubbish or fixing roads or anything that the corporate council does at the moment. But what we're doing, we're building a membership of local residents that are fed up with the decisions that your local council make that aren't in the best interest of the community. And we're building a management and an administrative team that when we get the paperwork, which we're also working on at the moment, to file and hand over to the corporate council at the top of the hill to vacate the building. You are unlawful, you are unconstitutional, and you have no right to be here. We will basically, in my opinion, move in and administer all the workers that work under the council, that do all the work around the area, collect the garbage, man the tips, clean the streets, and all the rest of that stuff. We will just go in and start to run the council with our administrative team. That's what my plan is for the People's Council. Now, when we set this up, I was of the opinion that we will just have a People's Council in every single council electorate, which is about 97 in Victoria. Now, what Spiracy is saying that we should have one in every suburb, which in the Frankston City Council area, there's about 10 or 11 suburbs. So you would have 10 mayors, and those mayors would formulate the council. So you would have a representative from each suburb to make sure that every suburb is being treated equally. We know Melbourne CBD gets the bulk of everything and the country gets left behind. I mean, that's been happening for decades, and the country loses people and it's wrong. And I think now, well, with what's gone on over the last 2 years, the country may be actually getting some people back because everyone's fleeing the cities, and I don't blame them. So the People's Council is purely a mechanism, as far as I'm concerned, to set up and challenge the corporate council, grow your membership, and then be ready to take over when the time comes.
Does that make it clear? Yep. Okay. I don't know that there's anything too much further that I could add to that. It's just a brilliant initiative that I've seen working firsthand down in Frankston from the My Place level, and have heard colloquially from Darren, of course, just how successful it's been getting the corporate council, to sit up and take a bit of notice. Now, I did actually hear, and I might have got the wrong end of the stick on this too, as I do with so many other things I've mentioned about you tonight. But the last council meeting, didn't they have an agenda that ran 300 plus pages or something?
Yeah, 320 pages.
Yeah.
And the last council meeting was actually a little bit unfortunate. The one before that was really, really good. And that was the one where the mayor of the corporate council actually recognised me as the mayor, where there was a time in the meeting, we had the whole joint packed out. There was probably 20 or 25 of us had high vis on. I'm sitting at the front of the dock, and he couldn't get one of the councillors to move the motion in that meeting. So me being a smart ass, thought I'd take the piss, and I put my hand up to move the motion. And the mayor just looked at me straight down and said, "Darren, the mayor can't move the motion, Darren." So he actually recognised me. I spoke to him and another councillor for 20 minutes after the meeting. I informed them all that they had no royal assent. We've had 2 referendums on a 3rd level of governance in this country. Both were unanimously voted to not have a 3rd level of governance. They had no lawful right to be doing what they're doing, and they're acting fraudulently as local government when they're not. And it was 3 days after that meeting that they reversed the decision to remove 2 permits for 2 food vans at Oliver's Hill Boat Ramp. And they reinstated those for another 12 months and then introduced a 3rd one. So we are having an effect, and it really does show. But they're starting to argue amongst themselves all the time now. We're starting to split the council. At that meeting, I told them, look, we're not here to ridicule. We're not here to abuse you. We're here to work with you, to inform you of what's fact, because a lot of them actually don't even realise that they've just come into a structure that they're working within those parameters. They don't know the depths and the history of how this is eventuated. So they believe they're doing the right thing for the community. We're there to inform them they're not, collaboratively, and work with them. And since that, they've started to have a lot of infighting. There's more than just the two independents now that are starting to listen to what we've got to say. Unfortunately, the meeting last Monday that turned into a bit of a farce, and there was a lot of conjecture, a lot of yapping from the audience. Multiple times we were warned. They ended up shutting it down and kicking us all out, which at that point I kind of got up and I gave them both barrels. And it was unfortunate, and that's not what we're about. We don't want to have to resort to that. We want to try and it's the same with a lot of the police. I believe that they just need to be educated. Once you treat them like humans and try and get a message through to them, once again we start that argument within the force about, well, this really isn't right. I don't feel comfortable anymore doing this, and that's what we've got to do. That's what they've been doing to us for decades. They split us up. They get us arguing amongst each other, and all we're doing is returning the favour.
Yeah, we can't lower ourselves to their level, folks, and we must understand that these councillors are totally informed by their council bureaucrats, okay? And that's how all this shit gets through. It's not so much that, well, I'm sure that there are bad people in charge in places, but they, for the most part, are informed by the bureaucrats that work in the council or in the government or in the parliament. And they make their decisions based on advice from those bureaucrats. Now, those bureaucrats are green-leaning, left-leaning, blue-leaning, purple numpties who are, firm believers in that the jab is great for all of us. And, well, if you want to thin the world's population, it's the best way to go. Then they're the people who are informing our decision makers. So it's not just the decision makers that need to change. It's once we get the likes of Darren and his 12 other mayors elected to the council, it then becomes incumbent upon them to clean out the bureaucrats and call out the bullshit when the bureaucrats start trying to exert their power over those that we elect to represent us. That's what representing is. It's representing the people's views. When you call yourself a parliamentary representative, you are meant to be representing the views of the people that elected you to that parliament. How many people do you think we have in a parliament that are representing our views at the moment?
No.
Absolutely none. They're all missing in action at the moment. Hopefully they're only missing because they're balled up on an island somewhere, eating bread and water and about to face a court. But
Christmas Island.
yeah, Lord Howe Island's another interesting one at the moment, folks. You've been following any of that news? Been a lot of military flights leaving Sydney, leaving both Mascot and Richmond and Williamtown air bases. A lot of those flights are Hercules, really good short field landing aircraft. I'm not sure how big the runway is on Lord Howe Island, but I do know that most of the pilots who flew there in the first week of this month forgot to turn their transponder off, and we were able to track them all the way there. They've now learnt that, and now they turn their transponders off as they're heading towards Norfolk Island, and then they change slightly and go north. So there is a lot of interesting things happening on Lord Howe Island. Why would you take people to Lord Howe Island, I hear you ask? Well, think of it like Gitmo. It's a long way to swim anywhere if you're trying to escape. It's a long way for anyone to come and try and rescue you. And if they do come and try and rescue you, then they are going to be seen coming from a very, very, very long way. Also very able to be protected from, yes, all sorts of different weaponry. So we've also heard that Christmas Island is full up. That's why Lord Howe is being used. There is also another island down towards Antarctica that we've been told of being used in that regard as well. So there is a lot going on. There are people disappearing off your television screens, out of your corporate businesses, and out of the banking industry every day. If you're looking to the mainstream media to try and tell you who those people are, you are definitely looking in the wrong spot. Maybe you need to go and get into Telegram a little bit more, or find a few groups of people that you trust, and you will get some information from there. There is a fair bit happening, and there are a number of boats. I told you earlier in a couple of previous shows that there are boats, we believe weather modification boats up off the east coast of Australia. Tomorrow night I'll have the names of those and pictures of all of them for you. I said the other night that I thought they were container ships. I was wrong. They're bulk carriers. it just makes it a lot easier for them to open up their cargo holds and do whatever they need to release out of there, associated other things.
Yeah.
So anyway, that's something we'll talk about tomorrow night from a show from Canberra. Darren, thank you very much for coming back tonight, another show with me and coming all the way from Melbourne for it. I really appreciate it. You and Anna put in a great effort to come up here, and you really looked after my daughter and I when we were down there recently. I'm sorry I'm not coming back to Melbourne with you. I've got to be back in Queensland by Saturday, and then I'm coming back down to Victoria again. Do you want to mention what's coming up in December, or are we getting a bit ahead?
No, I want to actually mention what's coming up this Friday.
Cool.
Good country town like Shepparton would be all over this, I would hope, and that's Remembrance Day on the 11th. And I've been on a quest for the last month to try and get 1 million people to the Shrine of Remembrance to remember our true freedom fighters from First and Second World War that actually gave their lives so that we could have a free and democratic country to grow up in. So that building, and I'm only just learning about this at the moment, but the building is probably the most significant building in this country, and we all need to start doing a bit of research on what and why that building is so important for us and New Zealand. We've got people in New Zealand working on this. They're coming over. I've got New Zealanders coming from Sydney, and it's going to be a massive crowd, and it could go down, even if we get halfway there.
Yeah,
it's going to go down as one of the most significant days in this country's history. It will be an historic day on the 11th. The 11th is a Friday, so it can be a long weekend, and I'm going to be there from 5 a.m. And look, I'd really love it if we can get as many people from Shepparton to come down and take part in that minute silence at 11 o'clock on the 11th of the 11th. That'd be awesome.
It doesn't have to be just Shepparton, folks. I know that there are people coming from interstate. I've had communications from people in South Australia, in New South Wales, and the ACT in Queensland, who are all coming down for this event this Friday. Unfortunately, due to a prior commitment, I had planned to be there, but I neglected to remember a prior commitment, and I have to be back in Queensland on Saturday, so to look after that. So I will go and do that one, but rest assured, Darren, my thoughts will be with you on Friday. I'm very disappointed that I won't be able to be there. But folks, if you can make the trip down, love to see you there. You don't have to be there at dawn with Darren, but be there for 11 o'clock. 11 minutes past 11 on the 11th. It is going to be a very significant moment in our history, I think. And thank you very much for organising it, mate.
No problem.
It is an initiative that Darren has put together. If you can't make it to the shrine for 11 a.m, maybe if you're in Sydney, you might like to go and check out the event that's happening on North Head. I think it's kicking off at 3 o'clock. It is a remembrance, as the saying says, at the going down of the sun, we will remember them. Well, Aussie Cossack and Dave Guru Graham have organised another event there at North Head, at one of the military cemeteries there. And one of those graves you will have heard about through the Aussie Cossack and myself some time ago, the grave of Russian-Australian Peter Shervin, who died as he came back from World War I, highly decorated, and well, his story was tragic. But there are other returned servicemen, Australian men and women, a lot of nurses who are buried in exactly the same cemetery area. So that event will honour all Australian returned servicemen, including Peter Shervin, of course. And if you can't make it to the shrine in Sydney, then 3 o'clock on North Head in Sydney on Friday is the time to be there for that one. Darren, thanks again for coming through. Really appreciate it. And ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for coming along tonight and spending your time with us. You've got something else you want to say before I hang up on you?
Yeah, I'd just really like to add one thing, guys, and just understand where we are at the moment, and all we're doing with my place, this isn't a short-term thing. And for all of our lives, we've been conditioned, and the way society is set up is to educate ourselves to take financial advantage over others that aren't educated. And that's just the way it is. That is what society is. And we've got to drop that belief, we've got to drop that system and stop taking advantage of others and step on them while they're down just to get you up a little bit higher. Because all the money in the world and all the assets in the world aren't worth shit if you don't have a free country. So it's time to drop those old habits and start to actually lift people up and get them up to your level rather than stomping on them and taking advantage of them. And that's what my place is all about. That's what we're promoting, is we all have to become one to fight the common enemy. And that's a big part of it. It's all about mindset. And none of you have to change the world, not one person. You don't have to go out and try and change the world. All you have to do is change one person, and that's yourself. And you have the ultimate power in every aspect of your life. You have that power where you spend your money, right? And we're trying to stop spending money at Woolworths and Coles, who've been raping and pillaging farmers for decades, right? That's a big one. Right. Now, rather than spend 5 hours a week waiting for that big news item that's coming out of some rabbit hole that you're going to be the first one to tell everyone that something's happened, why don't we spend an extra 2 hours going to your local greengrocer, your local butcher, and sourcing all of your products that you can from other sources apart from the big chains? McDonald's, KFC, all of those other shit foods. Stop spending money there. It's a bit of mental application that we are so poorly capable of doing, and I've been one all my life. Same thing. We need to reinvent ourselves. We need to start having some discipline, and we need to start realizing what we're doing, where we're spending our money. And if we can do that en masse and form groups like this and have support for each other, that's going to go a long way to actually solving this problem. And this My Place community and what we're trying to rebuild by having that attitude change and the mindset change, this isn't a 6-month exercise. This is a 2-generational exercise that is going to take that long. And we've got to build these communities so that when these other people start to wake up, they've actually got somewhere to come along and feel part of the community again, not isolated. And they will come. We're getting set up for it. They're going to be looking for mental health advice. They're going to be looking at advice of what's just happened. We need to be that advice. We need to be the leaders of the free world, of the new world, I should say, and be the bigger person and just accept them when they come and help them in every way that we can. And it is a mindset change that starts with us as individuals. And if we've got those kind of individuals living that and we're doing it in massive groups, that is how we make change.
Got a question, Ron?
Yes, Cole.
I missed that.
Coles is gone.
Oh, good. Coles is gone, he says.
It's gone.
Good on you.
It's closed.
All right, fabulous. Thanks again, Darren.
No worries, thank you, and thank you all for coming out tonight, and hopefully you're inspired to go and do something positive for your community.
We hope that is the case, folks, and if you are looking to get a show in your town, you want to get a bit of more information about My Place, then contact Darren. Your Facebook page?
Facebook is My Place Frankston. We've got them popping up everywhere. My Place Yarra Valley is another good one to follow. We have frankstonpeoplescouncil.org. I've got all the information out there if anyone wants to have a look. We are also setting up a mentor committee at Frankston so that people that don't necessarily have the skills or the know-how to set up a Facebook page and start these communities, and we're helping the guys in Whittlesea at the moment and in Pakenham and in Benalla. We will be there to facilitate and be the admin on your page until such times it grows to a size where you have all of those local people that can take over those roles. And we're in the middle of doing a very intensive blueprint of what it means to be part of the My Place community. And we're trying to keep them as uniform across the country as we can, so that everyone that knows about My Place Frankston has been following what we're doing knows that if one pops up in Shepparton, they know exactly the type of people, the type of platforms, what it's about, and they'll join in droves. And I'm not going to use the analogy, but it has to be as uniform as we can. And every area is going to be slightly different, but on all the big points of what we're about at My Place, it has to be uniform.
We all got to be pulling on the same bit of rope in the same direction at the same time. That's the only way we're going to overcome this. Darren has the rope. Darren has the plan. You folks are the ones that supply the muscle, and we'll all try and pull in the same direction. We will win this, folks. Thank you again for coming out tonight. Thank you for your support for the Voice of Freedom. I can't thank you enough for that. It's been wonderful to be back in Shepparton. It's the first time since I've been back since 1989. The place has grown since I used to work at 3SR, I can tell you. Well, it's not even called 3SR anymore. That's how much it's grown. I will tell you that I was here for the opening of that McDonald's across the road from 3SR. And I did probably spend a bit of money back there in the day, but I haven't eaten McDonald's now in over a year or 2 years even, I think. So
Well, maybe we come back for the closing. of
we'll come
McDonald's.
to the closing of
Nice.
McDonald's. Yeah, I'll be back for that. Folks, have a good night. Thank you very much from the Terminus Hotel in Shepparton. And if you are coming through Shep, come and grab a feed here. It's an absolutely magnificent meal. And Brooke and Greg, your hosts, will really look after you. Thanks, folks. Thanks for coming out tonight.
You let one ant stand up to us, then they all might stand up. Those puny little ants outnumber us 100 to 1. And if they ever figure that out, there goes our way of life. It's not about food. It's about keeping those ants in line. That's why we're going back. Does anybody else want to stay? Let's rock!